Hey guys, in this video we'll talk about smoothies in a box, Tesla's semi-truck, viral magic avatars, Xylo app saves jobs. Smoothie wants to see its smoothies in the hands of everyone as it promotes a healthy lifestyle, especially for consumers who have little time to spare in their daily life. Incubated out of Harvard's Innovation Lab in 2018, the founders are calling their company a healthy smoothie store in a box. It is essentially a robot that mixes fruits, vegetables, and add-ins like protein into a smoothie. Smoothie's beverage vending machine not only self-cleans, but it is transparent so that customers can watch the frozen ingredients travel through the blending process and even watch the machine clean itself. Next, Tesla launched its semi-truck this week, which adhered to some of its manifesto. It was fast to accelerate and fast to brake, as a semi is built with regenerative braking. This means that the brakes deliver power to the battery when drivers take their foot off the accelerator. The inside cab of the truck is built with a seat in the middle. Drivers would be able to stand up and change clothes within the cab, which is built with cargo space for tools as well as charging ports. Lastly, Lensa AI app itself has launched its viral magic avatars feature in late November, boosting the app to the #1 spot on the iOS App Store's competitive photo and video charts. Lensa AI works by inviting users to upload 10 to 20 photos of themselves. Using the open-source Stable Diffusion model, the app processes your photos to generate avatars of you that look like they were created by a digital artist. The #1 spot on the US App Store saw 12.6 million global installs in the first 11 days of December, up 600% from the 1.8 million installs it saw during a similar time frame in November. Here's something else for you to think about. Software as a service subscriptions have become a fixture of the modern enterprise, where organizations with more than 1,000 employees use over 150 SaaS apps. Increasingly, organizations are under pressure to reduce their SaaS budgets as inflation and related economic stresses impact the bottom line. A report from Vertis found that SaaS pricing is growing 4 times faster than market inflation. Customers are spending 53% more on licensing than they were 5 years ago, and that $1 in every dollars that organizations spend is now dedicated to SaaS. Fast forward to today. Xylo provides a platform that taps AI to analyze SaaS spend and usage in real time. So will companies be able to use Xylo's cutback option to save jobs? In summary, smoothies in a box propose to save time and health. Semi-trucks by Tesla stays true to the regenerative brake manifesto. Viral magic avatars turns your photos into avatars using the Stable Diffusion model. Xylo helps companies cut back on SaaS redundancy in a bid to help save people's jobs. And now presenting this week's podcast. Hello, Jan, and welcome to podcast episode 9. Last podcast of the year. How are you feeling today?
I'm in the Christmas spirit. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Right? Deck the halls with yeah. I have to say, Christmas really has a great, theme tune.
Spirit around it, true.
Yeah, the music around Christmas is just fantastic. I'm in the Christmas spirit, so
So
my
what
tree
is...
up.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask you, what's the latest Christmas traditions have you completed?
I put up a tree, but this time I've gone for a real tree. Got to have that pine smell, and I think that's just part of the magic. Of course, you can have plastic, that's fine, but it's not as good as a real tree, and that's that. So I'm a loyalist to the real tree tradition, and yeah, it's been nice to get that set up. Creates a nice smell in the apartment.
And what about cookies? Because I get my Christmas feel and inspired by watching movies. So in the movies, they're baking cookies and they're going sledding. So what did you do apart from building up your tree?
Well, I have not really gone into the culinary delights of Christmas yet, because I'll be doing that next week. Because first of all, this week I'm going to Wonder Fruit Hunt now, to the festival in Thailand.
Interesting.
Got to get that first and jump into Christmas next week. Yes.
Okay, so on the spirit of vacations and Christmas, let's start with the first question that we have today. I'm going to start with Lensa AI because it's really interesting to me, and it's one of the first, I think, avatar that I went ahead and paid for it because it was just so interesting. And I got mine, I posted it on social media, and I think about 5 friends messaged me and asked me how did I do it, and they went ahead and did theirs. And it was just so interesting to see that conversation cropping up and asking, we were all talking about how did they do it? How did they get that angle, that expression? So, and I feel that this year, you and I over the podcast, we have literally talked about AI imaging, AI, building their own photos so much. So what do you have to say about Lensa?
I mean, it's an extraordinary technology, right? I mean, I saw the photos that you shared as well, and if someone hasn't seen it, check it out, right? There's this great quote I just referenced from Arthur C. Clarke: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And the ability of this AI to essentially instantly generate such high quality variations on an individual from just a few photos is just, I think it's shocking. It's magic. It's real. It's like watching real life Harry Potter magic, right? So I think it's first and foremost worth recognizing that technological leap. And of course, as we like to do, sort of extrapolating from that, where might we be in 5 years time, 10 years time from this, right? That we're saying wow now, right? But what will we be saying in the longer term vision here? So I think that's also particularly exciting. It's just the arrival of this new paradigm and the fact that it's just getting started. So it's kind of hold on to your seats, right? This is something that's really going to take off. In regards to the avatar concept, I think it's cool that they generate that, but which one of those will you maintain as your photo? And what is it saying about you? Is it, what's the difference between an avatar and a cool photo of you, right? Because I think what Lensa is still doing is generating cool photos, essentially. It's like a sort of a virtual infinite photographer, right? Where you can get to do your infinite photo shoot. But I wouldn't say it's quite the same as an avatar. I think an avatar is loaded much more with the meaning of its creation. So when you have an avatar in a game, the avatar is loaded up with the stats usually on which you've been playing that game, and that's attached to it. And there's a story and a meaning of it. So AI generated art of me, there's no story in it. Even though the image itself looks fantastic, there's inherently a certain limitation to the meaning within it. And so I think that what we're going to be discovering is that the meaning side of the avatars is as important. I would say probably more important. One of the things that we are developing very rapidly in Leadapreneur is what does your professional LinkedIn avatar look like, right? What does that look like? And not just the avatar itself, but what's the metaverse of meaning around that avatar, right? Because that's also an important conversation. What kind of picture are you going to show of yourself to your boss, to your peers, to your colleagues, to your clients? And are you going to consistently show that? And so I think that's a really, a space that is only just starting to emerge as being important, because of course it's also, is that data in the avatar rigorous? Is it real? Is it credible? Right? So it's kind of like, in that sense, the evolution of the LinkedIn profile, but kind of taking it into the metaverse. So I think Lensa is this extraordinary technology. It's really amazing. I wouldn't say that it's at the avatar level yet. I think it's like the sort of infinite photographer, right? We've kind of realized that dream of not being bounded by space and time to get photos made of ourselves. But let's see where it goes in the avatar creation side of things.
Well, one thing for sure is I'm excited to see our avatar shop, right, being built up next year. So let's see how people are going to use it. Great. So now let's talk a little bit about your how do you call that? Man crush?
Yeah. I just want to kind of like, because it's like what we're trying to do with Leadapreneur, right? So if you have an avatar and you get an upgrade for something, like you are able to get a sword, right? A really awesome sword, for example, right? It's like flaming and lightning. It looks totally badass, but that should be correlated with the real world event. You've conquered a particularly difficult business challenge and you earn that sword. So it's the correlation between the art asset and the real world meaning, right? So maybe you closed a big deal and earned $1 million for your company, and the sort of symbolic representation is that sword. So when you look at that avatar, that sword represents it, and it is known amongst your peer group that that sword represents that. It has meaning in it, implicitly embedded within it. That I think is such an important, that's sort of the frontier of how do we just correlate the asset, the art asset, with the real world experience, and do that in a verifiable way so that we know that that's real. Because then your avatar becomes a representative of you, and in a much more profound sense at a professional level, right?
Well, I do get that when you're attaching so much of meaning and real world outcome to your avatar, it becomes much more powerful and sort of more real, right? But at the same time, isn't it more forgettable? Not more forgettable, but isn't it an avatar usually forgettable down the road? Like after 2 years or 3 years, would you remember? Do you remember what avatar you created on your games that you played?
Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? And I think that's where the word metaverse becomes important, because the metaverse has a longer has a permanent permanence, dare I say it, right? A game has a certain amount of permanence, but as you said, maybe after 1, 2, 3 years, you get bored of it and then it's gone. Whereas the metaverse has a much deeper concept. If you look at a metaverse like World of Warcraft, I'm not sure how long it's been around, but I would guess it's probably about 20 years now, or it's approaching 20 years and it's still going, right? So that becomes really interesting, right? Which is a much deeper sense of permanent. An organization's innovation metaverse, what we do with Cosmos, right? We create that innovation metaverse inside of an organization, is designed to be permanent, right? The ambition is not that you install Cosmos and then 2 years later it's gone. The ambition is there, at least for the rest of industry 4.0 at least, right? Fingers crossed everything goes well, but that the design intention is there. And so what might be different though, as what we do in Leadapreneurs, you can take on different roles. So you can have your warrior avatar, you can have a pathfinder avatar, you can have a strategos avatar, and in a game, sometimes you might want to be a fighter, and then you might want to be a healer, and then you might want to be like a mage or something like that. So the individual can then take on the different avatar as represents the role they're taking on right now.
Okay. So let's move on to the next topic, which is Elon Musk. So in this news that we're seeing right now is they're coming up with the semi-autonomous trucks. But also yesterday, I think we saw in the news that Elon Musk valuation sort of was slashed down because of, some are saying that because of his craziness over Twitter, some are saying because of the overvaluation of Tesla. What do you have to say about it?
I think I was having a look at that stat also today, coincidentally, where what I was looking at was the price to earnings multiple. And so this is basically what's the valuation of the company versus how much it's earning, right? And so it could be like for every $1 you earn, you add on maybe 10x valuation. So if you're earning 100, you're worth 10x, or you're worth 1,000. And I think S&P 500 companies are, from what I remember, have about a multiple of about, I think it's 8 to 18. Let's call it 10 to 20, right? But Tesla's multiples were just ludicrous. It was like 50, 80, 100, right? So you have such pressure and unrealistic expectations around that. It was always going to come down. So I think it's just a natural correction, really, and it's not that surprising in the sense of it happening. They're also under quite a lot of pressure. I think China is a market that they were looking to expand in, but there's a lot going on there. But I think stepping back, I think the way to think about Tesla is a sort of industry 4.0 super tech company. It's not an electric car company. That's a very big mistake to think it's an electric car company. Tesla is only just at the beginning. Yes, they're electric cars, but they also have their supercharger network. They also have the Android robots that they're going to be built, that they are really building, Optimus. Now, there's been a lot of criticism of that, and it's not nearly where it needs to be. And you compare it to Boston Dynamics, it's not as advanced. But I think it's reasonable to expect by the end of this decade, by 2030, they will have industrial robots. And if you look at what is like the next $1 trillion opportunity, we all have computers in our hands, let alone our homes, right? But the idea of that 50 years ago was bonkers, right? The phone in my pocket is more powerful than all the computers that were on the most powerful rocket that man ever sent to the moon, right? And our smartphones are more powerful than that. And if you told someone 50 years ago, right, that was true, they would have just absolutely laughed in your face, and it would have been ridiculous. But now we have a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and the world's largest company is one that produces mobile phones, right? So if we look at what might potentially happen, and you have a robot helper in every single home, like really that sort of Jetsons future, I think he's serious about that, and I think it will happen. I think the aging population, certainly in America, Europe, Japan, Korea, other, advanced markets, even China, will drive this. It is inevitable, I think, that it will happen. And so that's, Tesla is building expertise in that. So it's like this application of industrial robotics and the ability to tap into incredibly advanced engineering skills across its, for example, tapping into SpaceX, right? And things like that. So there's a potential there to build this sort of company that has expertise, not just on the software digital side of things, but the hard problem, which is like hard engineering, right? Big bits of metal, expensive factories that cost billions and billions and billions to make, right? And you can't just sort of agile your way and MVP your way to some sort of success, right? They're tackling the really hard stuff. So I very much think that the correction that we're seeing is natural, it's normal, it's sensible. It's probably a little bit painful for him. I don't think he cares that much. I think he's got better things to worry about, right? It's just numbers. I think, at some point that when you're wealthy, it's just numbers. They go up, they go down, they go sideways, and you just have to be true and clear about what your strategic plays are and what your commitments are, and then you play the game. You don't step in and worry every day how much it goes up and down. That's not the right way to approach it. And I'm confident he doesn't do that. So the real question is, what is the value engine that is being built? And what is really powerful about Tesla is not just simply that it's an electric car company, it's their manufacturing. It's the gigafactory. This is really one of the ways in which, they have pioneered the next level of mass production, mass individualization, you could almost say, right? It's a common case study to reference Henry Ford, and the breakthrough there was the manufacturing technique. Tesla, in particular, in partnership with the Italian company that builds the Gigapress, before a car was basically assembled, right? You get lots of parts and you have to stick them all together. First it was humans, and now it's often done by robots. But what Tesla's figured out is how you just take one bit of metal and you stamp it, and that's it. And so you've cut down by 70, 80% the amount of parts that need to be stuck together, because this magical technology that they have means that Tesla can produce, I think, for every one car that Volkswagen produces, it can produce 2 or 3 at a much lower unit cost.
What do you mean?
This is why, for example,
how did they do that?
So if you imagine like the door frame and all these like these bits, they have to be stuck together, right? There is no form. It's lots of separate parts that get bolted together and welded together, right? But if you just imagine just taking like a cube of metal and you flatten it and then you imprint on it and stamp it in the right way, you have everything pre-detailed. It's already there. And so this essentially gives them a huge leap in terms of speed of production as well as efficiency of production. And it is one of the areas that they're making notable progress over their rivals. So yeah, so I think that's sort of, they're really just, in a similar way, maybe like to Ford, was only just getting started really in the 20s and 30s, right, and beyond. I think Tesla is only just gearing up. And if you look at the runways that they have, assuming that they don't mess it up on other things, but they've come this far. I think if Tesla was going to die, it would have died by now. And it's such an iconic brand, and it's so successful. They're the #1 selling car in Germany, right? That's it's just amazing, right? You're in the fatherland of cars, Mercedes, Audi, BMW, right? You've got your AMG supercar, whatever, right? And an electric car from an American, it's disgraceful, right? I mean, Germany, but at the same time, it's awesome because they are that far ahead, right? And the quality of the product speaks for itself. So I think we hear so much noise about what goes up and what goes down, and I think it's worth just stepping back and just seeing the bigger picture, and that industrial expertise that they're building and their investments in technologies that put them way ahead of their competitors in terms of the industrial manufacturing techniques, as well as plays into fields like robotics, which create natural synergies, right? Because you could imagine, for example, these android workers would be on Mars, right, building the colony. This is, this sounds nuts, but I think this is, and I think this is not just me. This is other people sharing that he's creating this technological ecosystem. And let's not forget, right, the Starlink global network, right? I remember talking about Starlink with some of my clients 10 years ago who were telco companies, and they thought I was a total nutter.
Well,
right?
you were suggesting something like Starlink, like you were saying like create something like that.
Coming. I was saying it's coming.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a fanboy of Musk for like 15 years, since like a very long time. So I've been like, and he says what he's going to do and he does it.
Yeah.
And it's not, right? That's what's amazing, right? And so And here we are today with Starlink active, right? And playing, for example, a critical role in the Ukrainian war, like a really, really important role. So he has this ability to synergize his industrial vision, which is you've got space communication technology, space rockets, cars, solar power in the form of I can't remember, Solar City, I think is the name of the company. It all creates feedback loops within itself.
And he's also creating that logistic company with the tunnel, intercity tunnel, something.
Yeah. So that might play a role. Or you got Neuralink, and you got all these things, and they have these really. If you map it out, it's basically the foundations of building an empire, really, right? This is the hard infrastructure of what to do, and I go for it, mate. Like 100%. Let's see what happens, and I think it's inspiring, and I think it's good to have a visionary. I mean, I would describe him as a leaderpreneur, but that's just my language, right? But I think he has those qualities that are extraordinary, right? He is a leader, he is a manager, he is an entrepreneur, he's a fantastic communicator. And I think he is a collaborator in the right ways that he's also able to build strong partnerships with people. So, that's why he's able to be where he is today. He couldn't get there without working with others. So it's that formidable sort of a combination of capabilities that far exceeds the traditional realm of just being a leader, right? Because the traditional leader doesn't have those technological capabilities, right? When we look at leaders who we admire, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, amazing leaders, but I wouldn't say they were technology driven, right? And I think so. That's where it kind of, Elon Musk was actually one of the people who really inspired me around building the leaderpreneur concept. That there's something very special in that combination of those 5 skill sets. It's like when you have those 5 skills, your capability goes up like 1,000x if you do it right. You're vastly more capable than just a traditional manager or leader. And especially then when you network leaderpreneurs together. So building that sort of like-mindedness, and that's I think what he's trying to do at places like Twitter. He's just purging out the culture, and that kind of riffs me into he's from what I understand from the news reports, I guess we don't really know what's true, but he's fired the majority of the staff, 80%, and Twitter's never been more successful, right? It's working fine, it's great, it's upgrading itself, and I think he's just kind of building the right kind of hungry culture. Now, I don't want to tap into it, I want to sidestep the moral and ethical legal issues around that. Let's see what comes out of that tumultuous experience. But from a performance point of view, one can see what he's doing. And I think that it's reminded me of the work that I've been doing around, what we address as sort of the demons inside of Leadapreneur, right? That when problems exceed solutions in a company, chaos starts to emerge, and that chaos births particular kinds of demons. And those demons are formalized as being things like ignorance, arrogance, fear, complacency, and delusion. And these are actually, in my mind, cultural phenomena, because everyone talks about the Nokia case study, but it is still fascinating because Nokia did innovate, right? They did everything right. They really did. It's easy to look back in hindsight. They did everything right, but I think we have overlooked this really important. What is being overlooked is that the language of consciousness is not being used. What was the consciousness like of Nokia? I think my suggestion would be it was infected with demons, with viruses, arrogance, ignorance, complacency, right? Fear. And that prevented it from being able to do what it needed to do to succeed. So even though it had money, talent, tech, right, political support, everything, it was not able to succeed. And so I think that what we're going to see in our day and age is sort of these demons, these cultural viruses. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll stick to demons, right? Are what would destroy organizations. I think that is sort of there's a demon in the consciousness of the organization, and it's creating, for example, a culture which expresses itself as arrogance, which expresses itself as willful ignorance, right? It expresses itself as complacency. And things like that. And so I think what Musk does is he addresses these demons. I don't know if he uses the language that I'm doing, but he's talked about sort of the woke mind virus, and it took me some time to understand what he meant by that, but I get what he's saying. And then I think ties that there is there's a belief around a certain set of values, right? To be woke, to be maybe aware of, how would I technically define this without getting into trouble? I think you're probably just becoming more conscious of others, conscious of your impact of others, conscious of minorities, conscious of biases, conscious of stereotypes, just becoming more conscious, right?
Which is a woke mind concept that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is wokeness comes from being like awakened, you're waking up, you're kind of stepping to this high level of consciousness.
Okay.
So wokeness. But the reason why I think he compares it to a virus is because viruses don't know how to stop. They just breed until they destroy their host. And so I think the challenge that we're seeing around wokeness and indeed sort of the culture wars in general is not knowing when to stop. And that's what leads to extremeness. Because once we start going woke and become more woke and become more woke and more awake, and we kind of get lost in our conspiracy theories or beliefs and biases and assumptions, and it kind of leads to our own destruction. And so I think that's where there has to be that ability to draw boundaries and to practice ethics and to say, this is enough wokeness, right? And for example, the company Shopify made it clear that politics are not welcome in the workplace. Focus on doing your work. Don't bring in all these cultural arguments. And that got a lot of people very upset. I think it's reasonable for them to do that. I think it's reasonable for them to assert boundaries and say, no, we're not going to politicize this space. And if you don't like it, you can leave, right? You don't have to work there. You don't have to stay there. You don't have a right to practice politics in an organization that you don't own, right? You don't have the right to do that. And so there, I think, is that sort of conversation that's happening that's challenging it. And yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's important. I do think it's important to be aware of these issues. But as always, I tend to find amongst all the noise, where's the getting on with it? Right? It's like companies that talk a lot about innovation, like, oh, look, innovation, it says it in our values on the wall over there on the poster. Those are the ones that tend not to be so innovative, right? Because innovation means just doing innovation, being conscious, being awake. Like I think Leadapreneur, I think we're a very conscious organization. I think we're incredibly diverse. We have a wide range of variety of viewpoints. Sometimes we share them, sometimes we don't. We laugh, we tease each other, we were serious with each other, right? We practice all these things. But then we get on with doing Leadapreneur, which is first and foremost about what it's about. And that's what we love. And that's what we care about. Democratizing innovation, empowering people to build a better world, like doing cool stuff together. So it's about not getting too caught up in the secondary conversations, remain focused on the primary purpose. And you can see this going wrong in Disney. The Disney share price has fallen off a cliff. It's like 70-80% down. It's catastrophic. And invite any listener to just quickly Google Disney share price and you'll see what I mean. And so there's that sort of phrase, go woke, go broke. Now, all I can say is, I don't know if that's true, but if a lot of people aren't interested in the woke message that is being presented, then you're unlikely to be commercially successful, no matter how morally righteous you may believe you are, and that you think that the side of good and truth is on your side, right? Like life just goes on. So there's an important element there of returning to the basics of what the business is about and staying true to that and staying focused on that while still building a collective conscientiousness inside the organization. And that's, maybe one of the key challenges of 21st century leadership there.
I'm going to ask a very cheeky question. How do you identify?
Question, Hannah. Oh my Lord.
How do you identify the demons? Because I'm sure if you have people listening to us, they would want to know in the organization that they're working for, do we have demons and how do you identify them?
Well, the demons are always there, just like the angels are always there. So it's not, do we have them? The question is, to what extent are they manifesting themselves? Because demons in and of themselves aren't bad, right? They actually bring good things. And it's a naive understanding of good and evil to think that demons are bad and angels are good, for example, right? That it's like a childlike worldview. You can do that and it provides a basic operating system, but the world has a lot more nuance to it and operates at a much more sophisticated level. So it's about recognizing demon does not equal bad. Demon, I think, just equals maybe destabilizing. But destabilization is good sometimes because it breaks down the old and allows the new to be created. So you do need to have demons to create destruction so that you can then lead to creation. So it's not get rid of the demons. It's not we don't have any demons. It's demons are natural. Demons are present inside ourselves and inside our organizations. And it's about how we dialogue with them and discuss them. So I would say the thing to recognize is that they are there. It's can you discuss it? Can you talk about the level of ignorance inside the organization? Can you talk about the level of arrogance inside the organization? Can you talk about the level of delusion, complacency, right, and fear? And have honest conversations that are transparent and authentic all the way to the very highest levels of the organization and in between power structures from junior to senior and senior to junior. And if you can do that, if you can create the conversation space, then that's already, I think, most of the battle that's been won, because that conversation will reveal it within itself what needs to happen next. You know, assuming it's authentic, it's transparent, and it's an open conversation. So that I think is where that maturity needs to come in. It's about the maturity to discuss about those things. Saying, are we being too arrogant, right? Because that's certainly what happened in the sense of when Nokia and BlackBerry saw what Apple did, right? They've never made a phone in their lives. What do they know about making phones? Lol. That was their basic reaction, right? And then a few years later, they're dead. So were there conversations that were being serious about, are we being too arrogant here, guys? Have we misjudged this completely? Have we got this completely wrong? Are we actually the idiots, right? And so, okay, so I have this like 10-step process that I think is quite useful that I'll share, and then we can wrap things up, which is basically, these are the 10 steps you need to do. Number one, you need to shut up. Step number one is shut up. Stop talking. Stop sharing with that, especially for seniors. Shut the bleep up. Shut the fuck up. I'll just say it. Shut the fuck up. Because, and it needs to be that direct, because we have this auto habit of just spilling out crap from our mouths, and it blurs and creates delusion. And especially if you're senior, people will listen to you because you're senior, right? You're the hyper, you're the highest paid person's opinion. So you need to silence yourself, and you need to make that a practice. So just spend a day, a week, just refusing to say anything unless someone deliberately and specifically asks for your opinion. It's an amazing experience, life-changing. I'm not even joking. It is.
I am
Step one,
so
shut
going
up.
to tell Shen this. So going to tell Shen about this one.
Step two, sit down. Sit down at the table with the people. Which is that what the sit down means? Sit down at the people where the conversation, the problem, whatever is happening, and be there. Don't be away. Don't be absent. Don't be the strategic leader leading from the front, the back, wherever you think you are. Be there, sitting at the table. And then step three is listen, proactively listen. Your job is to listen. Your job is to be as silent and present as possible and absorb and listen, and listen without prejudice. You're not trying to be right, because you're not allowed to share, right? Rule number one, shut up, right? You're absorbing reality, you're absorbing perspectives, and you are trying to synthesize. And when you do that correctly, you get to step four, which is you get it. But what you get is that you don't get it. And this is sort of one of those little fun games. Like, do you get it? If someone says yes, then you don't get it. But if you say, oh, I don't get it, then you get it. You have to get that you don't get it. You have to understand that you have no idea what's going on. And whatever you think is going on, it's 100% not that. You're completely delusional about what you think reality is. And you're being told stories because for various reasons, you need to be told those stories to get other things done. But the nature of reality and what you think is actually happening is completely different. Right. And this is also, you know, for example, in the evidence in the case studies from Nokia, where people just didn't report to their seniors what was really going on. And so what this, you know, the seniors are obviously presumably working very hard and doing very important senior stuff, but they're completely delusional. They don't get it. And they don't get that they don't get it. And they're not going to get that they don't get it in time to change things fast enough. So they're doomed. Right. So step four is getting that you're getting it. And then what then happens is this enormous ego shock. Oh my God, what do you mean I don't get it? Wow, I'm so foolish. I'm so blinded, right? And sort of the destruction and disruption of the ego there in step five, and that's important because eventually you just need to get over it. It was always going to be that way. Actually, it was never going to be any other way. You were always ignorant. We're always ignorant. We're always not knowing. The mistake was to be delusional to thinking we did in the first place, right? So you accept that you don't get it, and then you get on with it. Get on with doing what you think is important. You're humbled now. You're grounded. You're paying attention. You're listening more than you're talking. You're clear-sighted and focused. And your heart is open and true because you understand what's really going on in the sense of being connected to reality, not being blinded by your own delusions or what you pretend reality to be. So we got sit down. Then we got shut up, sit down, listen, get that you don't get it, get over it, get on with it. Those are the 6. And then the last few are get good, Get really good at what you do. Get really, really good. Those are steps 7 and 8. Really focus on building excellence without being blinded by your own delusion that you think you're excellent. Go out there in the world and see who the best are. Be humble. Be learn from those who are much better than you. Acknowledge that they're much greater than you, and be inspired from them to rise to your own greatness. And that takes you to step 9. So get good is number 8. 7. Get really good is number 8, and then shine bright is number 9. And that's really the opportunity to recognize that there is a place for you in this universe, and that you are here to shine bright. You are here to excel, and you're empowered to do that. But to get there, you have to first shatter your ego. You can't shine bright in the egoic sense. It's just delusion. And then when you do that correctly, you'll arrive at step 10, and eventually what you'll realize it's about serving. It's about serving your purpose, whatever you wish that to be, whatever you perceive that to be. But a profound sense of humility and purpose and passion comes into your life where you're trying to serve your purpose. And I think we can see that in a man like Musk. It's easy, many things that can be said about him, but what he's not doing is chilling out on the beach, drinking pina coladas and having nice time with lots of beautiful people, which, a lot of people would choose to do given what he's achieved so far. This guy is in his factories doing his things, and he believes in his purpose, right? Which is to make human life multiplanetary, right? To try and address the challenges around global warming through electric cars and things like this, right? So he lives his purpose and he serves that. And so when you're able to go through that state of consciousness, that journey that I've been describing, these 10 steps are really a journey through the paradigm from the egoic state of consciousness to the connected state of consciousness, which is essentially a form of everyday enlightenment. And that's what I think is the great frontier in Industry 4.0 for our leaders to achieve that level, because that's ultimately your level of capability. But that's another conversation for another time, Hannah.
So well said, Jan. There could not have been a better ending than the 10 steps that you have just shared. On this note, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And don't forget to believe in yourself, be brave, be bold, be brilliant, and build a better world. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Leadapreneurs YouTube channel to get your weekly updates.